Okay, I came to Jeffrey's book review last month, and he did his favorite books, and so many of us who were in the audience that day liked that format, and he and I were talking about it, and he said, well, will you do one in February? So I said, okay, I got one together. My reading tastes are pretty eclectic. About the only thing I don't enjoy reading is nonfiction, but I like pretty much all kinds of fiction. I like comedies, I like mysteries, that's my favorite genre, and I also like some horror stories. But I'm to the point at my age now, I can't read those horror stories right before I go to bed. If I do, I have horrendous dreams. I had a terrible dream last night. Somebody was holding me hostage and I couldn't get away from him. So I woke up this morning exhausted. Anyway, I also like series types of books. And some of my favorite series are the Southern Sisters series by Anna George. And those are comedies. They're mysteries, but they're also funny. I think there's 9 books in that series, and I've read them all. There won't be any more because Aunt George has died. Those books are set in Birmingham, Alabama, which made them more, I could relate to them because I knew some of the places there. I also like the Lutheran Ladies Circle books, and those are by Chris Noer. And the first couple of those books were really funny, but the last 2 were more serious, so I guess she kind of changed horses there. Then I like the Longmire series by Craig Johnson. There are 13 of those, and I've read them all. If you like the TV show Longmire, you should really read the books, because the books are way better than the TV show, and the TV show is wonderful. And the books that I'm going to talk about today is the Anna Pigeon series by Nevada Barr. My voice is not going to hold out. I might say this too. I like authors that I have some kind of connection with. Like I like L. Sidney Fisher. She's done some book reviews here before. She writes ghost stories. And I like her because she was one of my drama students when I coached drama at AHS. And it's nice to see your kids grow up and do something in ours. I love Sam Haskell's book lessons I learned from my mother, because Sammy was one of my drama kids when I taught school in Amory. And I like Nevada Barr because we got to meet her once. She came to ICC and did a lecture one night. And my Madison got to hang around with her and kind of escort her around that night. Had goofy pictures made with her, not that kind of stuff. So I just liked her. I liked her personality. And this is what she looks like. This is what she says about her writing, and I'm just going to read it if I can. I met Anna Pigeon in Guadalupe Mountains National Park in Texas the summer of 1990. It was my second season with the Park Service, and I was working as a law enforcement ranger there. See, Nevada Barr actually worked as a park ranger in a lot of these parks she writes about. Before that, I had written 4 novels, 2 not too bad, 1 even got published. With Anna, I experienced what minor miracle writers talk about. I found my voice. With the creation of the Anna Pigeon character, I began writing close to the bone, mixing a great deal of myself into my people, places, and things. Writing became a joy, a blessing. It all made sense. In 1995, I retired from the Park Service to devote myself to writing full time. Well, not full time. There's a great deal of goofing off required of retired government workers. Somebody asked her that night she spoke at ICC, "What's your writing schedule?" She said, "Well, I'd like to say I get up early every morning and I go to my computer and I start to write." But that's really not true. I get up and I dig around until about lunch, and then I might get ready to start writing. Since then, I have written books about parks from California to Florida and had a grand time doing it. Anna and I have aged and changed along the way. Excuse me. In the beginning, we were very alike, but the evolution of the soul of a character and that of a person cannot be controlled with any great precision. Now Anna is her own woman, but still, when I write her, I have that hardwired connection that keeps her alive for me and, one hopes, for those who read my books. In each book, I've tried to find a new challenge for the both of us, a situation unexplored, an emotional world I've not yet touched, a writing style I've always admired. Okay, the first of her books is The Track of the Cat. This was not the first of her books I read. One of her, I believe Hard Truth, I'll talk about it in a minute, was the first book I read. But I liked her so much, and especially after I met her at ICC, I wanted to read all her books, so I started back at the first. This book is about, as Anna was patrolling the remote West Texas backcountry, her first job as a National Park Ranger is marred by the violence she thought she had left behind, the brutal death of a fellow ranger. When the cause of death is chalked up to a mountain lion attack, Anna's rage knows no bounds. Of course, everybody's out to kill all the mountain lions, get the mountain lions out of the park. And she certainly didn't want to see that happen. It's up to her to save the protected cats from the politics and prejudices of the locals and prove that the kill was the work of a species far less rare. Okay, her second book is A Superior Death. A Superior Death takes place on Isle Royale National Park in Lake Superior, Michigan. Anna is adjusting to the cool dam of Lake Superior and the spirits and lure of the northern Midwest. But when a routine application for a diving permit reveals a grisly underwater murder, Anna finds herself 260 feet below the forbidding surface of the lake, searching for the connection between a drowned man and an age-old cargo ship. What was supposed to be just a routine dive so she could get her diver's license. When she dived down where its cargo ship was, she found a body inside the ship. Written with a naturalist feel for the wilderness and a keen understanding of characters who thrive in extreme conditions, A Superior Death is a passionate, atmospheric page-turner. The next one is Ill Wind. This is at Mesa Verde National Park in Colorado. And this one means more to me now because I've been there. She describes the, and I say villages that the prehistoric Indians had carved in the side of this mountain. And Mike and I actually got to go down to the kind of the valley of the mountain floor. Then we had to climb up, I think it was a 40-foot ladder up to the little houses, and we explored the houses, and they were just as she described them in this book. In it, Visitors to Mesa Verde have been bringing home more than photos. They're also carrying a strange, deadly disease. And once it strikes, Park Ranger Anna Pigeon must find that very human source of the evil wind. Okay, the next one is Firestorm. It takes place in Lassen Volcanic National Park. A raging forest fire in California's Lassen Volcanic National Park traps exhausted firefighters, including Ranger Anna Pigeon, in its midst. Afterward, Anna finds two from her group have been killed, one a victim of the flames, the other stabbed through the heart. Now, as a rampaging winter storm descends, cutting the survivors off from civilization, Anna must uncover the murderer in their midst. Endangered species. This takes place in the Cumberland Island National Seashore off the coast of Georgia. With the crash of the drug interdiction plane on an isolated Georgia island, an accident or sabotage, Park Ranger Anna Pigeon investigates. Though the experts are called in to evaluate the crash, Anna can't let the investigation rest solely in their hands. Her inquiry causes her to stumble into shady dealings that question the integrity and honor of her own crew. And the next one is Blind Descent. This one was very hard for me to read. I love caves. I love spelunking. And Mike and I even went to Carlsbad Caverns National Park this past summer. But in this, her friend is exploring a non-public portion of the cave where are housed these very delicate, lacy cave figures. While she's there, her foot gets caught in a crevice and she breaks a leg. But she sends for Anna and she tells Anna, this was not an accident. I was pushed. So when Anna gets there, she is enjoying the open spaces of Colorado when she receives an urgent call. A young woman has been injured while exploring a cave in New Mexico's Carlsbad Cavern Park. Before she can be pulled to safety, she sends for her friend Anna. Only one problem: a crushing fear of confined spaces has kept Anna out in the open her whole life. And she describes in great detail these dark, closed places inside this cave. And when she's trying to rescue this friend of hers, a horrible tragedy happens. And it was hard to read. When I read a book, I live it. It's just like I'm watching it on a movie screen. And I could just see this happening, and I could scarcely breathe in some parts of the book. But it was good. It was page turn. Okay, Liberty Falling. This is probably one of my least favorites. It takes place at the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island. And I thought I would enjoy this one just because of its setting, because Mike's mother probably came through Ellis Island when she came to this country from Czechoslovakia via Germany and then into the United States. But I don't know, it was hard for me to get into this book. There's peril beneath the watchful eyes of the lady. Rooming with a friend and fellow park ranger in close quarters on Liberty Island, the small strip of land that is home to Lady Liberty, Anna spends her free time exploring the Grand Monument and the crumbling, overgrown, and eerie ruins in the unrestored sections of nearby Ellis Island. But the peace she seeks there is shattered when she finds herself among the crowd gathered at the lady's base, staring at the broken body of a teenager who fell or was pushed to her death. Deep South. This is a favorite because it takes place in Mississippi. Anna was actually a park ranger on the Natchez Trace in the southern part of the state. And this is one of 2 books that is set along the Natchez Trace. And she gets into our southern culture pretty deeply in these books. Park Ranger Anna Pigeon stumbles upon a gruesome murder with frightening racial overtones. The handwritten sign on the tree said it all: repent. For Anna, this should have been reason enough to turn back for her beloved Mesa Verde. Instead, she heads for the Natchez Trace Parkway and the promotion that awaits her. Almost immediately, she finds herself in the midst of controversy. As the new district ranger, she faces resentment so extreme her ability to do her job may be compromised, and her life may very well be in danger. She goes home one day, starts to get out of her car, and there is an alligator in her garage, and it bites the leg of her dog, trying to protect her. But all thoughts of personal safety are set aside with the discovery of a young girl's body in a country cemetery, a sheet around her head, a noose around her neck. Blood Lure. I believe you said you got this one recently. Straddling the border between Montana and Canada lies the Waterton Glacier International Peace Park. Anna's home away from home when she is sent on a cross-training assignment to study grizzly bears. And this one gets pretty grizzly. Along with bear researcher John Rand and a volatile, unpredictable teenage boy, Anna hikes the backcountry seeking signs of bear. But the tables are turned on their second night out when one of the beasts comes looking for them. Daybreak finds the boy missing, a camper mutilated, and Anna caught in a grip of fear, painfully aware that her lifelong bond with nature has inexplicably snapped. Say that twice in a row. Okay, hunting season. This is her other Natchez Trace book. The quiet, beautiful autumn on Mississippi's Natchez Trace is swiftly shattered when Anna answers the call to Mount Locust, once a working plantation and an inn, now a tourist spot. But the man Anna finds in an old bedroom is no tourist in distress. He's nearly naked and very dead, his body bearing marks consistent with sex games gone awry. On a writing table nearby is an open Bible with ominous passages circled in red. There are secrets that prominent men in this God-fearing country wish to keep under wraps, and Anna has stumbled into a nest of them. She also stumbles into a husband in one of these Mississippi books, and I think it's the second one, it might have been the first. She marries an Episcopal priest who is also the sheriff of the small town that his parish is in. Okay, flashback. I liked this one, but this is one of those that parts in the present, parts in the past, and you're flipping back and forth practically every other chapter. Anna takes a post as a temporary supervisory ranger on remote Garden Key in Dry Tortugas National Park, a small grouping of tiny islands in a natural harbor 70 miles off Key West. This island paradise has secrets it would keep, not just in the present, but in shadows from its gritty past, when it served as a prison for the Lincoln conspirators during and after the Civil War. Here, on this last lake of the United States in a giant crumbling fortress, Anna has little company except for the occasional sunburned tourist or unruly shrimper. When her sister Molly sends her a pack of letters from a great-great-aunt who lived at the fort with her husband, a career soldier, Anna's fantasy life is filled with visions of this long time ago. And when she has these imaginings, that's the part where you go back into the past. She figures out things that happened then. Okay, high country. This one takes place in Yosemite. It's fall in the Sierra Mountains, not Yosemite. Where is it? High country, where? Yeah, it is Yosemite. It's fall in the Sierra Mountains, and Anna Pigeon is slinging hash in Yosemite National Park's historic Wahine Hotel, that may not be pronounced correctly. 4 young people, all seasonal park employees, have disappeared. And 2 weeks of work by crack search and rescue teams have failed to turn up a single clue. Investigators are unsure as to whether the 4 went AWOL for reasons of their own or died in the park. Needing an out-of-park ranger to work undercover, Anna is detailed to dining room duty. But after a week of waiting tables, she knows the missing employees are only the first indication of a sickness threatening the park. Her 20-something roommates give up their party girl ways and panic. Her new restaurant colleagues regard her with suspicion and fear. Yet when Anna's life is threatened and her temporary supervisor turns a deaf ear, she follows the scent of the evil, taking a solo hike up a snowy trail to the high country seeking answers. What awaits her is a nightmare of death and greed, and perhaps her final adventure. This one is really scary at the end when she confronts the whodunit guy. Okay, Hard Truth. Hard Truth. This is actually the first of the books I read. Another thing I like about Anna is you see the same characters again, or she references characters that she's already written about, and that gives a continuity to her books that I really like. She introduces these characters, and then we meet them again in a later book. Just days after marrying Sheriff Paul Davidson, that's her Mississippi Episcopal priest sheriff husband, Anna Pigeon moves to Colorado to assume her new post as district ranger at Rocky Mountain National Park, when 2 of 3 children who had gone missing from a religious retreat reappear. Anna's investigation brings her face to face with a paranoid sect and with a villain so evil he'll make the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. These 2 children wander out of the woods, and they've been part of this religious group. Creepy stuff. But in this one, you meet her friend who is a paraplegic, and she later winds up adopting one of those children that they rescued from this sect. Okay, winter study. This one is cold. I almost froze to death reading this book. Read it on a hot summer's day. Soon after Anna Pigeon joins the famed wolf study team of Isle Royale National Park in the middle of Lake Superior, the wolf pack begins to behave in peculiar ways. Giant wolf prints are found, and Anna spies the form of a great wolf from a surveillance plane. When a female member of the team is savaged, Anna is convinced they are being stalked, and what was once a beautiful, idyllic refuge becomes a place of unnatural occurrences and danger beyond the ordinary. Excuse me. Okay, Borderline. This one was another really, really intense page turner. Okay, Anna had nearly been killed the 2 books before in that winter study, that winter study guy, and just experienced trauma that she could not come to grips with. The killings on Isle Royale have left Anna drained and haunted. Her memories of her time with the Wolf Study Group forever marred by the carnage on our island. Diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, she is on administrative leave per her superintendent's urging. Anna wonders if the leave might not be permanent, either by her own choice or that of the National Park Service. That's how rattled she was after that last book. The one bright spot in Anna's life is Paul, her husband of less than a year. Hoping the warmth and the adventure of a raft trip in Big Bend National Park will lift her spirits, Paul takes Anna to southwest Texas, where the sun is hot and the Rio Grande is running high. The sheer beauty of the Chihuahuan Desert and the power of the river work their magic until the raft is lost in the rapids and a young college student falls overboard, resulting in an even more grisly discovery. Caught in a strainer between two boulders and more dead than alive is a pregnant woman, hair and arms tangled in the downed branches. Instead of the soul-soothing experience they longed for, Anna and Paul find themselves sucked into a labyrinth of intrigue that leads from the Mexican desert to the steps of the governor's mansion in Austin, Texas. They have to deliver that baby on the side of the Rio Grande River. Burn. This one was by far the hardest for me to read. It is so emotionally intense. It deals with child pornography and kidnapping children and doing these horrible things to them. And I would read a little bit and I would literally have to put it away for 2 or 3 days before I could go back to it, because as I told you before, when I read a book, I live it, and I did not like being in New Orleans in this book. Anna Pigeon, on administrative leave from her job, she recovers from the dramas of the past couple of months. While the physical wounds have healed, the emotional ones are still healing. With her new husband back at work, she and Paul actually spend very little time together because he won't leave Mississippi and she has her job wherever the National Park Service sends her, but they make it work. Where was I? Anna decides to go and stay with an old friend from the Park Service, Geneva, who works as a singer at the New Orleans Jazz in HP. She isn't in town long before she crosses paths with a tenant of Geneva's, a creepy guy named Jordan. She discovers what seems to be an attempt to place a curse on her, a gruesomely killed pigeon marked with runic symbols, and begins to slowly find traces of very dark doings in the heart of post-Katrina New Orleans. Tied up in all of this is Jordan, who is not at all what he appears to be, a fugitive mother accused of killing her husband and daughters in a fire, and faint whispers of unpleasant goings-on in the heart of the slowly recovering city. Now it will take all of Anna's skills learned in the untamed outdoors to navigate the urban jungle in which she finds herself, to uncover the threads that connect these seemingly disparate people, and to rescue the most vulnerable of creatures from the most savage of animals. The Rope. This was a good one. Anna Pigeon's first case. This is the story her fans have been clamoring for. This is where it all starts. In The Rope, the latest in Nevada Barr's best-selling novels featuring Anna Pigeon, Nevada Barr gathers together the many strings of Anna's past and finally reveals the story that her many fans have been long asking for. In 1995, and 35 years old, fresh off the bus from New York City and nursing a broken heart, that's where she lost her husband, her first husband, Anna Pigeon takes a decidedly unglamorous job as a seasonal employee of the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. On her day off, Anna goes hiking into the park, never to return. Her co-workers think she simply moved on. Her cabin's cleaned out and her things are gone. But Anna herself wakes up trapped at the bottom of a dry natural well, naked, without supplies, and no clear memory of how she found herself in this situation. As she slowly pieces together her memory, it soon becomes clear that someone has trapped her there in an inescapable prison, and no one even knows that she's missing. Plunged into a landscape and a plot she is unfit and untrained to handle, Anna Pigeon must muster the courage, determination, and will to live that she didn't even know she still possessed, to survive, outwit, and triumph. So, I don't know, it might be good to read this book first and then start with actually the first book she published, since this is Anna, a new, green, not knowing anything park ranger. I don't know. I read it in the order that I had it listed here. Okay, to the story You're an Angel. This is another vacation gone badly. Anna Pigeon sets off on vacation, an autumn canoe trip into the Iron Range in the upper state, Minnesota. With Anna is her friend Heath, the paraplegic. You met her back in the Hard Truth. Heath's 15-year-old daughter, Elizabeth, the one she adopted. Leah, a wealthy designer of outdoor equipment, and her daughter, Katie, who is 13. For Heath and Leah, this is a shakedown cruise to test a new cutting-edge line of camping equipment. The equipment, designed by Leah, will make camping and canoeing more accessible to disabled outdoorsmen. On their second night out, Anna goes off on her own for a solo evening float on the Fox River. When she comes back, she finds that 4 thugs, armed with rifles, pistols, and knives, have taken the 2 women and their teenage daughters captive. With limited resources and no access to the outside world, Anna has only 2 days to rescue them before her friends are either killed or flown out of the country. That was a good read. And it gets its title from the name of a poisonous mushroom. Destroy Her Angel mushrooms. Okay, Boar Island. Now this one means more to me because I have now been to this national park. Anna has had to deal with all manner of crimes and misdemeanors, but cyberbullying and stalking is a new one. The target is Elizabeth, the adopted teenage daughter of her friend Heath Jarrett. We meet Heath and Elizabeth again. Elizabeth is driven to despair by the disgusting rumors spreading online and bullying texts, until one day Heath finds her daughter Elizabeth in the midst of an unsuccessful suicide attempt, and then she calls in the cavalry, her Aunt Gwen and her friend Anna Pigeon. While they try to deal with the fragile state of affairs and find the person behind the harassment, the 3 adults decide the best thing to do is to remove Elizabeth from the situation. Since Anna is about to start her new post as acting chief ranger at Acadia National Park in Maine, the 3 will join her and stay at a house on the cliff of a small island near the park, Boar Island. But the move east doesn't solve the problem. The stalker has followed them east, and Heath, a paraplegic, and Elizabeth aren't alone on the otherwise deserted island. At the same time, Anna has barely arrived at Acadia before a brutal murder is committed by a killer uncomfortably close to her. and that's the last one.
Are they numbered, or how do you know what?
I'm about to give you a handout
Okay.
that has them in order. If you'll just take one and pass it. I've taught school long enough to know that if I handed them out at the beginning, you have been reading the handout instead of listening.
That's a good
I
point.
didn't know if it's inside her book covers. I didn't know.
You can find the list online. Some of her book covers have them listed, but the older books won't have the newer books listed. So I printed that list out for you.
But you have them printed as you read them, not as they were published.
As they were published. I have them printed as they were published. And I read Hard Truth, and then I backed up and read them in the order that you have them on your handout. But I think in retrospect, it might be good to read The Robe first, and then do the others.
I've not read that, but I got it on a CD. It was on CD, and it was one of the first of hers that and then Boar Island. But I don't know if we have any more.
We could get some more if we don't. Those are some of the newer ones.
He ordered Boar Island. I love Jeffrey. He is the best librarian. I just messaged him and say, Jeffrey, buy me so-and-so. He says, okay.
So you got all these books here?
I'm not sure if we have all of them. Likely have
Done a lot.
most of them, if not all, because she's a Mississippi author. So we tried to have them all. There's always a chance that one of them is checked out and not come back, and that might not have caught on their radar yet.
But he will get it from Lee County.
Yeah, or Lee County,
because
or
he does that for me all the
Oxford,
time.
Yeah, he can get it from anywhere in Mississippi.
I remember when her first one came in, she looked quite different then the way she looks now.
Yeah.
That was
Now, the
what
way
was
she describes herself in these earlier books is she has long hair with a ponytail. That's Anna. That's how Anna looks. Is long hair with a
She
braid.
was a short-haired brunette, when she first started writing.
What does the time frame look like for that first book? What was that, 80s or 90s?
The first book was written in 1993.
93. So she's still. It's
And
been
her
about a
last
year or
one,
two.
Boar Island, was published in 2016. My crew has to go. We have people waiting
All right.
on us.
Absolutely.
But I thank y'all.
Thank y'all for coming. I just got one announcement before you go. Ramona from the Extension Service told me to tell everybody if they would like to come by the Extension Service Tuesday for the Women's Heart Luncheon. That will be Tuesday at the Extension Service at 12 o'clock, I believe. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Next month is actually going to be Good Friday, coincides with the last Friday, so we'll probably wait to do National Library Week, which will be like the second week of April. Will be tentatively Elizabeth from the Learning Center doing that review. But I thank you all for coming, and I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to catch some baseball at Ole Miss if it doesn't rain, which is a pipe dream because it's probably going to rain. Thank y'all.
You have a new baby?
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
It's got a